To truly understand the events of today, you have to understand the events in history. Understanding history can be difficult, however, because of the layers of sexism, racism, and other blockades that hide it. It is crucial, though, that we find our way past these blockades to get to a true understanding of how our world came to be. Take, for example, the most well-known competition of the ages, the Olympics. To truly understand where they came from and how they were shaped, you must look past the barriers put in place to hide its true history. Most, when asked about the ancient Greek Olympics, would be able to tell you roughly how they worked. They might know what kind of competitions there were, or maybe a bit about why the Olympics were held. Most, however, would not be able to tell you about the sexist barriers around the games, or how those barriers led to no woman competing for the first 380 years. Most wouldn't be able to tell you about one woman who, despite all the challenges she faced, became the first female to ever win an olive wreath at the games. This woman was none other than a Spartan princess by the name of Cynisca, whom with her determination and fast horses took home the first female win of the Olympics. Like most of history, ancient Greece was a man-driven world. When the men of Greece decided to start the Olympics in 776 BC, they did so in honor of their god Zeus. Zeus was the king of their pantheon of gods and was someone every man wanted to be. He acted how he wished and didn't think twice about the opinions of women. Knowing that, you can see how the Olympics got its sexist character. The Olympics held many manly sports such as boxing, long jump, wrestling, javelin throw, discus throw, pancration, and running. All of these events were similar in the fact that only men were deemed fit to participate in them. You see, the Olympics had very strict rules against women participating in or even viewing the games. The only woman allowed presence at the stadium was a priestess of Demeter, for religious purposes only. They went so far to enforce this rule that all participants competed naked. If a woman decided to sneak in and watch the games, it was punishable by death. The only loophole in this anti-woman rule was the chariot races, the final event of the Olympics.
Women were not allowed to attend the games and they were not allowed to participate in the Olympic Games apart from the priestess of goddess Demeter, who is allowed to participate during the games and to watch the games.
The chariot races were a rich person's sport. The real athletes, the driver and the horses, were mere property. Wealthy horse owners would breed and train their horses to pull Olympic racing chariots. They would construct a team of 4 of their fastest and strongest equines and put them in a race called the tetrapon. The chariot would be driven by a slave or paid jockey who would not relish in any of the winnings. Because of all this, the owner of the chariot and the horses would be deemed the winner of the race. Seeing as the owner did not have to participate athletically and did not have to be present at the race, there was no rule stopping women from participating as horse owners. This sounds like great news. Tons of women would be able to participate, right? Sadly, it's not that easy. Most women were seen as property themselves, and therefore were not allowed to own property. To the ancient Greeks, a woman owning horses was like a horse owning cats. It didn't make sense. So how did Cynisca manage? The answer to that lies in her upbringing. Cynisca was a Spartan, and Spartan women had a lot more rights than the women of other polis. This was mostly because of Sparta's war-driven livelihood. Their main goal was to create strong soldiers for their army, and they believed that they could do that by making their women strong, so they could bear strong children. This led to a less segregated state. Alongside this, with so many of the men off at war, women had to take up more manly responsibilities. This allowed women to own and manage property, as well as remarry if their husbands died at war. Cynisca took advantage of the former, and was able to inherit horses from her late father. Cynisca was born around 440 BC to King Archidamus II and his wife Eupolia. Her brother, Agesilaus II, was the future king of Sparta. She was born just in time for the start of the Peloponnesian War, which began 9 years later. Cynisca's life wasn't easy, even though she was royalty. She had to deal with a lot of consequences of the war, and her father's death when she was 13. Despite all the sadness that came with the war and the death of her father, one good thing did come out of it. Cynisca inherited her father's horses. Now, Cynisca had always been an equestrian. She loved horses and would work often with her father's in her free time. When she inherited those horses, she went straight to work training and breeding them. With access to horses and chariots, Cynisca already had all she needed to participate in the Olympics. She just needed a bit of a push. Her brother, Agesilaus, gave her that push. Agesilaus was his sister's greatest supporter. He persuaded her to try her luck in the Olympics. His motives behind this are largely debated. Some historians think he had negative opinions about the chariot races, such as they weren't a manly enough sport. They think he used his sister to prove his claims. Other historians cut him a bit more slack, saying he wanted glory for Sparta and his sister. Either way, with her father's horses, her brother's encouragement, and her own skill, Cynisca brought her horses to the Olympics of 396 and 392 BC.
So there's also one case that women actually won the Olympic Games only when they were the owners of the chariots that they were competing at the chariot races. So the first Olympic winner, actually a woman, was actually from Sparta, and she won the Olympic Games, I think, of 319, yes,
396
and yes, 392.
Cynisca's skill and dedication paid off, for she won the 96th and 97th Tetrapon Olympiads and became the first woman to do so. She, like all other Tetrapon winners, had a bronze statue of herself erected at the Temple of Zeus in Olympia. Only the stone base of the statue remains today, which is inscribed with a poem written by Cynisca describing her accomplishments. My father and brothers were kings of Sparta. I, Cynisca, won a victory with my swift-running horses and set up this statue. I claim that I am the only woman from all of Greece to have won this crown. Her victories inspired the women of Greece and paved the way for many others to follow in her footsteps. Other ancient women went after her, including ladies such as Eurylionis, Zuo, Timarete, Cassia, and Bellistiche. We wouldn't have our female Olympians today without Cynisca of Sparta's bravery and determination. That is how the efforts of one dedicated Spartan princess have allowed female Olympians today to participate in the Olympics alongside the men. By understanding the hard work of Cynisca, a woman of the Olympics, we now can better understand and appreciate the amazing Olympics we have today.